I hope this book just helps women feel seen and to know that even if they're in their darkest days right now, there is light at the end of the tunnel and that they have everything they need already to get to that place.
This is episode 8, a duo episode with me and Victoria Nielsen. Today we're going to be talking about life after miscarriage and grief as a profound teacher. Welcome back to the Living on Purpose podcast, a place where we discuss the importance of purpose in our lives and connect with others that have created soul-aligned offerings that build into their own personal purpose. I'm your host, Katherine Ziegler, and I'm so happy to have you here with us today. Before we get started, please make sure to turn on notifications, subscribe, rate, and review the Living on Purpose podcast. When you send me your screenshot of the review to Katherine@klzmethod.com, we will send you our KLZ Method workout for the chakras. Also, as you are listening, screenshot your favorite part and share it with us on Instagram at klz.method. I love hearing from you all and sharing your thoughts and comments. I'm super grateful to you and all of the amazing listeners here, helping us to grow the podcast and share its guests and message with more people. Before we head into the show, here is a quick word from our sponsor. 22 Club email subscription from KLZ Method is a free monthly publication that outlines all the details of the upcoming season as related through numerology, astrology, and nature seasons. It's a great way to connect into each month in order to work and flow with the energy of the season. I love getting a good sense about the tempo of the month before it begins in order to map out my intentions for the next weeks, and the monthly suggested KLZ Method membership videos add an extra layer of support. Sign up for the free email publication at the link in the show notes and immediately receive a free 5-minute meditation in your email inbox. And without further delay, let's now begin today's episode. Victoria is a trained Akashic Records reader, intuitive healer, and author of Find Your Way Home, Moving Through Miscarriage. She helps women move through the big emotions of motherhood with a magic mix of breathwork, inner voice facilitation, and embodiment practices to rediscover who they want to be after baby. So Victoria is here with us today. Welcome.
Yay! Thanks for having me, Katherine.
I know this is just destined to be, right? Victoria and I have known each other for a while, and we've definitely lived some life in just our time together. So let's jump right into this. Let's talk about Find Your Way Home. Let's talk about this book.
Oh gosh, part of me can't believe I'm going to be a published author, and the other half of me is like having an exhale, being like, oh, finally.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's something that I was always meant to do, but that I was really afraid to claim.
It's like you hold these ideas in your body almost, right? So it's like you're holding it. And then when it's out to the world, you're like, okay, I can relax a little bit. It literally is a birth.
Exactly. And I think finally coming around to the idea that it could be my story and it could be enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think I really worried for a while that no one would want to read it, or that a book of poems wouldn't be meaty enough to get someone interested. And then when I realized that it's my story, it's poems, and it's some practical things that any woman can do who is moving through something similar, that was the aha moment that I was like, oh, okay, like this could really help people.
Like the intro and the outro actually end up being so substantial just because how could it not, right? I mean, and I think that people really love to hear other people's stories. It just gives them an opportunity to understand who's writing this, to put it into context. And forever in time, we've just lived through stories. Like they just are so compelling and really draw us in to want to learn some of the things theory-based or more educational and whatnot. So I think it's so stunning.
Thank you. And I think to help others realize they're not alone. You know, I think something like miscarriage is so heavy. And I had no idea that so many in my in my inner circle had experienced it until I was willing to be open and share. And then
Yeah.
it felt like people came out of the woodwork to say,
Right.
oh, that they had had one or two even.
Mm-hmm.
And I would have never known if I didn't have the courage to speak up. And
Yeah.
I hope this book just helps women feel seen and supported, and to know that even if they're in their darkest days right now, there is light at the end of the tunnel, and that they have everything they need already to get to that place, that they don't need anything outside of themselves to move through and move through with grace.
This really is just such a beautiful opportunity to empower women in such a stronger way. We talk about this a lot, like the divine feminine rising. And I say this in pretty much every episode. The divine feminine rising isn't always a woman on the beach with very little clothes on dancing around to some drum beats. Not that it can't be, not that we don't love that. But, the divine feminine is this opportunity to really receive and allow and nurture and nourish these feelings. And what's happening a lot with society these days is that we have these intense experiences like a miscarriage or like an actual delivery of a baby and just becoming a new mom. And it's intense. And who do you talk to about it? And where does that fit into society? Not the having the baby and jamming in 5 other things to your life. Now that all fits in, but buying all the things, the consumer side of it. But where does it fit in to move into those emotions in not an appropriate way, but where does it happen where we can experience those emotions and really allow them to cohesively become a part of our life? I know you've got stuff to say on that.
Well, I feel like allowing ourselves to be messy.
Mm-hmm.
I think society doesn't want to see the mess. They want to
Mm-hmm.
put it behind a closed door. They want you to bounce back, so to speak, after having a baby. And
Mm-hmm.
that was the biggest portal of awakening for me, not just the miscarriage, but then having a healthy baby afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know who I was or what I wanted anymore. And I think
Right.
it's natural, but we don't realize it's natural because we don't talk about it. And so we feel like maybe we're a little bit crazy, or we've been altered in a way that we can't go back, which is true. But I think it also allows you to soften in a way maybe
Mm-hmm.
that you never have before. I know that's how it was for me, and that I'm still softening
Yeah.
every day and realizing that it's okay to be a complete fucking mess and it's
Mm-hmm.
okay to like have these feelings. And I think when I went through the miscarriage, one of the conscious things I did was say that I didn't want to numb myself. I
Mm-hmm.
used to smoke a lot of weed,
Mm-hmm.
and I consciously said, no, I want to feel these feelings,
Mm-hmm.
because if I don't, they're going to come back up in a probably very unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And I think I, at the time, didn't find it very courageous, but now I'm seeing that it was that
Mm-hmm.
other people would have maybe chosen to drink or numb themselves with work or
Yeah.
anything really. And I said no to that. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons I was able to move through it.
And to the people that are drinking and are using, drugs and that kind of thing, obviously we want to make sure that we're healthy and all that kind of stuff. But I honestly don't feel like it's that terrible either. And I love what you're saying about your experience and how you did it to stay present. And it offered you such a deeper connection with it. But I also know that you will agree with me on whatever it is that you need to do to get through it. And sometimes being in that intense place of not dealing with it, and not to get this incorrect, I'm not trying to say, push your stuff down, don't deal with it. But when you don't deal with it, it almost culminates into something bigger that finally it's big enough that it does come. Whichever way you handle it is right, because
Exactly.
it's a journey and you're going to find your way, and you can't hide from this stuff.
No, not at all. And I think that the miscarriage truly was that catalyst, because I was hiding and I
Yeah.
was putting it
Oh.
down, and I wasn't facing my true calling or who I really was. I think
Mhm.
I was caught in the rat race like
Mhm.
everyone. It's so easy to want to climb the corporate ladder, and if that's your goals, that's beautiful. But
Mhm.
I found in this experience that they were no longer my goals.
Mhm.
But I would never have known that if this big, messy,
Mhm.
terrible, sad thing
Right.
hadn't happened to me.
Right. The same thing for me. I mean, these spirit babies, they come to us whether in whatever shape or form they come to us, right? This is a spirit. This is a soul. It came into our life. We had a contract with it. And we'll get into that a little bit more with the Akashic Records in a second. But in whatever way, these beings are teachers, whether they're now 5-year-old kids that you have in your life or whether they were a miscarriage, you have the opportunity to really learn and grow. And they came to you for a reason. I truly believe that.
I do too, honestly. And my second son, Rocky, who's 6 months old now, I believe was that original soul that came through to help me. And I know that now that he's Earthside, that there's so much more to learn and to journey through together. But I truly, truly believe that. And that, a lot of women want to blame themselves and their bodies. And I just am here to say, please don't, that it's actually not you. It has a lot to do with that little soul and their karmic lessons as well. Like there's a lot more to it than just your body failed you, which I know it can feel excruciating, but once you kind of realize it's part of a bigger picture, it can feel a little bit easier to know that, yeah, it's not just your body. It's your soul contract. It's that baby. It's their soul. It's, it's very interconnected.
Lifetimes on lifetimes on lifetimes of journeys. Victoria and I really connected through her Akashic readings, and she really supported me a lot through an experience that I was having with my hip replacement when I was really looking back into my hip and so confused. Like I really was connecting to it and doing so much Reiki and doing so much meditation and breath work and really connecting back into it. Ended up being my grandmother Louise, my mom's mom that I never met. She passed away when my mom was 8. Connecting back into that energy, and it was residing in my hip. And so with Victoria, we went in and took it deeper. And to just expound on your point about the soul contracts and all these different things, one of the things, I don't know if you remember this, that you told me was you were born stillborn, right? Do you remember this?
Mm-mm.
In a past
Whenever
life.
I channel, I don't even know what I say.
I know. I totally know what you mean. Told me you, in a past life, you were stillborn. And it's because on another planet at another time, you did dark magic on animals. And so coming back as this baby, you offered this opportunity to clear. I don't want to call it a sacrifice because that seems a bit much, right? But you cleared that energy by coming back. So that baby wanted to do that. And it was really interesting because you were the second person. I don't do like a lot of readings, but you were the second person that told me that. And when you told me that, it lit up my whole body in goosebumps, which talk a lot about the body being a high precision tool that tells you this information. When your body is lighting up with goosebumps, it's telling you like a fuck yes, that is your dial going off the chart. The point being that when you have these babies that are moving through and we're grieving them and we're sad to lose them, the journey that we had with them, it's not always negative. There's the potential for a silver lining.
Absolutely. And, the journey never ends. Once you're connected to certain souls, you're always connected. And that may be the end of the journey in this lifetime,
Right.
or it may not.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think having to realize that it's not always about you, right? That sometimes that maybe to your exact point, they're clearing some type of karma or doing something that you have no control over in this lifetime. And it doesn't mean it's not sad. It doesn't mean it's not awful. You're here as a spiritual body having a human experience to feel the spectrum of emotions, to feel the contrast of sadness and happiness. And that can be really hard.
Yeah.
Earth isn't an easy place. It's low density here. Like it's a lower vibration. And depending on your unique essence and lifetimes and everything that has brought you to this moment, you're going to feel it differently. And I think that's so important to bring up, is that everyone's journey is really unique. And that just because I'm experiencing something or you've experienced something, Catherine, like it can be entirely different for someone listening, and that doesn't make it any less, right? Like it's still your reality and you still feel it acutely, no matter if it happened yesterday or it happened, 5 years ago, unless you do the work to raise your vibration and move through it. I say in the book that the miscarriage feels like it happened to someone else. Like,
Wow.
I really wondered if I should make the book about miscarriage because it felt so long ago.
Wow.
And I feel like I've had so many lifetimes since then, and it's only been
Mm-hmm.
4 years.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because of how much I threw myself into the healing work and the spiritual work after kind of having that portal open.
Right. So for you, it really was, maybe we can call it an unrecognized opportunity, or did you recognize it at the time that it really wasn't? I mean, I know it doesn't feel like an opportunity as you're going through it, right?
Definitely not while I was going through it. I can look back and
Yeah.
say that I'm thankful for it with
Mm-hmm.
immense gratitude. But when I was in it, like on the floor, telling the universe, I surrender, I just wanted this grief to stop.
Yeah.
And like
Right.
I can feel the grief in my throat right now as I say that.
Yeah.
You know, it felt never ending. And it felt like there was never going to be a going back. There was only a before and an
Mm-hmm.
after.
Mm-hmm.
And now, 4 years later, I've died many times since then.
Yeah. Over different things too, right? Like different
Mhm.
things have come up. I mean, and as you're saying that you're feeling it in your throat and you're coughing, you're still clearing that energy.
Exactly.
You know, it's maybe not as heavy or as thick, but you're still clearing it. It's part of your physical body.
Exactly, and it will always be immortalized in your Akashic Records. So for
Mhm.
those that don't know what the Akashic Records
Yeah.
are, they're really just an energetic frequency and a higher perspective that every person on this planet has access to at any time. And it contains everything that has happened, can happen, will happen. All of your feelings, perceptions, memories, lifetimes are contained in the Akashic Records. And some people like to think of them as an actual book. I think that's a little too static because the records are mutable and change based on your free will, based on your healing and energetic capacity and energetic work. But it's all there and will
Mhm.
always be there until
Mhm.
the end of time. And so you are always going to have an echo of some of those things imprinted in your auric field and in your energy because of that, because of this infinite record of you that I really turned to over and over again during the miscarriage healing process and still use now because it just allowed me to see that bigger picture, that bigger perspective in a way that I wasn't able to on my
Mhm.
own when I was swimming in grief.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the fascination for me was it just opened up once I started working with Akashic Records. It just really opened up the um, the opportunity for more answers beyond just this life. You have some things that happen to you when you're in your teens and you're, whatever, like the way that you were raised by your parents, these kind of things that you go through. And so those become something that you talk with your therapist about how this happened when I was this age. And you go through things and maybe you move and change a little bit. But I feel like at some point for me in my experience, it was that the way that I'm feeling no longer matches this lifetime situation. There's something else going on here. Why do I feel this? And for me, it really was going back into my maternal wounding with my mom, with my grandmother, having to re-experience her life. And I know that a hip replacement is nothing similar to a miscarriage, but just to share the two next to each other as journeys deeper, going back and working with her as she was in the hospital and wasn't allowed to see her kids as she knows that she's dying and can't speak because she has a food tube in her throat, can't tell her husband how she wants things to happen. I mean, going back and reliving that whole experience and clearing that and healing it for her and holding it. Like with a miscarriage, you're holding space for this baby. It's not an easy job. Being a space holder is tough. Watching somebody go through something in any kind of way, a human being like suffer some experience, especially when it's something so tender.
Exactly. And it just, I'd never thought of it that way of being a space holder for that baby and the baby's energy, and then having to be a space holder for myself as
Mm-hmm.
I'm going through the healing process. And, you and I are space holders for people now
Mm-hmm.
consistently for a living. And woof, like,
Mm-hmm.
woof. I had
Mm-hmm.
never thought about it like that. And no wonder it is such a hard experience to go through. And then without the support, with the silent feeling of, I don't want to talk about this, I don't want to be ostracized, or also I'm not ready to share this, or I'm
Right.
not ready to put this out in the world. Like, I have the most caring husband in the world, and there were parts of this that I didn't share with him,
Right.
that he is not even learning about until he read the book.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it can be such a solitary experience,
Yeah.
even when you have tons of support around you. And so that for me was what I also wanted to help women with, because I turned to poetry books like this one because I
Right.
wanted someone else to put words to what I was
Mm-hmm.
feeling,
Mm-hmm.
because I couldn't do it. And
Yeah.
so I hope that the poems in this book can do that, can give women the words of, oh my God, that's exactly how I feel right now,
Right.
because it can be so hard to verbalize some of that,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lot.
Yeah, I mean the being numb element of it is a defense. It's just like I just can't right now. I don't know the words. I mean, I remember after I had Rose, my first baby, I had been on the trading floor, for 5 years. I was in my masculine energy. I was running around fighting. I was one of two women in a pit of 200 men, fighting, spitting, arguing over quarters of a cent all day long. And something in my mind told me that once I had a baby, I should no longer be there. I was like a should that I did. I probably didn't need to, but I told myself I shouldn't be down here anymore, so I should leave. And so when I did, and now I have a baby at home by myself, and I'm suffering an intense adrenaline drop. Adrenaline is a drug. It's just like if you quit coffee or if you quit cocaine. I'm not kidding. I mean, no longer having that adrenaline running through my veins really shifted my whole experience, and having a baby, especially one that didn't want to sleep longer than 20 minutes at a time, was just really tough. I remember I couldn't talk to anybody on the phone because she might wake up in 10 seconds, and it's like I just didn't even want to try anymore. It's just like I just felt so isolated, and it was what it was from my experience until I told Frank I need to just he was between jobs. He had 2 weeks off, and I said, "Can we just go to Colorado? I just need to be in the mountains." And we went out to Colorado and stayed for a couple of weeks, and I just would buy just an edible, and I would take half of it, and I would put Rose in the front baby carrier, and we would just take a hike every day. Half of an edible at like 9 a.m. It just felt like it really let nature in a different kind of way to like actually heal me in the ways that I needed to receive it. And we would just do this thing, and I really was brought back to life by that experience. I really was able to realign my energy and shift and release and all those words that do all those things. You know what I mean? Like just come back online, I guess.
But how beautiful that you were able to listen to your intuition.
Yeah.
I think that's a huge lesson for me and for anyone listening, that your intuition, you know what's best for you and your
Right.
body and your baby. And, that's the key. If you get nothing else from this conversation, I hope it's that,
Mm-hmm.
because what's right for you is something only you know. Like,
Mm-hmm.
when you follow that intuition, even if others think you're crazy, even if others are judgmental, even if, others are like, no, that's not the way it's done,
Mm-hmm.
follow that conviction,
Mm-hmm.
because you're the one that does know. And
Right.
I think, and I was guilty of this too, as a first time mom. I Googled everything. I looked
Right.
outside of myself for
Yeah.
everything until I was like, I have the Akashic Records. That's a
Right.
tool to use to help me explore inward and explore what's right for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt so empowered after that to realize, no, I have the answers. I
Right.
know the way, even though this baby guru on Instagram is going to tell me that I'm doing it wrong. Like,
Right.
fine, wrong for them, but not wrong for me.
Well, and to just go into that a little bit deeper, this externalization of our truth and our essence, looking like to bye, I was at bye baby all the time, looking for the things and all of the figuring out everything. And it's the same thing with the fitness industry where they want to tell you that you need this gadget to track your heart rate. It's like, you know what you can actually do? You can put your thumb on your wrist and you can feel your heart rate. I saw some commercial the other day that was talking about how, we help you connect to your body. It's like, I don't need help from anybody to connect with my body. That's data, like what you're saying. Same thing, like looking at externally for these things, going inward. And don't be surprised when you meet some shadow there. You have to move through some of that shadow work that's not always pretty. But I promise, I guarantee that when you can sit with it, when you can allow it, when you can talk to it, when you can call in guidance around it, call in a coach, but doing that work that is not running away from it, it's running towards it in a supported way, is life changing beyond just this circumstance.
I love that quote or line of, yeah, are you running to it or from it?
Mm-hmm.
And, there was a period right after the miscarriage, and I really need to probably start doing this again, where I wouldn't pick up my phone. I
Mm-hmm.
would read a chapter of a book. I would get on my yoga mat and move my body. I would meditate. I would do anything else first thing in the morning to get me really present.
Mm-hmm.
And inevitably the floodgates opened. I cried probably every morning, but I felt better afterwards.
Yeah.
And I wasn't distracted. There were days that I wanted the distraction, but I
Right.
always found that when I came back to tuning out the outside world, that I felt so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And that, little by little, there's days that you realize, oh, I went the whole day without thinking about it. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I went the whole week without thinking about it. Oh, I
Mm-hmm.
went the whole month without thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
And granted, I did have a healthy baby on the way afterwards. I think it was like 4 or 5 months afterwards. But I think if I hadn't, I still would have returned to all of these practices. I still would have been taking it a day at a time doing these things, because grief is tricky, man. Like, you don't
Mm-hmm.
know when it's going to come back and rear its ugly head, or when something's going to make you sad, or when something's going to remind you. And, you got to feel those feelings. Tears are medicine. You got to move through it, because I think that's something else that the old me would have done, would have been like, no, I need to power through. No, I need to work. Like, no,
Right.
I need to distract myself. And to some extent, that's okay. But continuing to shove it down, like you said, it's just going to make it explode even larger in the future. When you're not listening to the universe throwing those little
Yeah.
pebbles right at your window, and then you're not listening, and it's like, all right, I'm going to throw a fucking boulder. Then you can't avoid
Mm-hmm.
this.
Right. Right. I love too that you say though, that you said, I love that you said allowing yourself that break though. Some days it is just you do look at your phone. This isn't a strict protocol that if you, because I feel like sometimes we can put these like masculine structures around it, like I need to do this, and if I don't do this, then I'm not going to ever heal. The whole point of this healing is an opportunity to go softer. And it's tricky, going softer means you don't have as much structure around, and that is harder to really navigate that space. Am I being softer or am I being lazy? Do I need some, like, you've got to find that balance of like how much structure do you need and how much feminine do you need? So, and that changes every day too. So that's just another fun little thing about it. Like there's no answer, but just being uh, in touch with yourself and giving yourself what you need that day or what you perceive you need that day. And if it's wrong, well, then change it tomorrow.
Exactly. I think people are so afraid of making mistakes. And I would put myself there too. Honestly, even a couple years ago, you don't want to get it wrong. And so you
Mm-hmm.
ask a million people, or you don't take the step because you're afraid. And the fear is good. The fear means you're getting outside of your comfort zone. But I think a
Mm-hmm.
big lesson that I've learned is that we're never really wrong. If
Right.
we come from that perspective, that any choice we make is never the wrong choice, God, how
Mm-hmm.
freeing is that to realize
I
that
know,
it's okay, you know?
right? And especially it's never wrong, especially if you learned something from it. So say yesterday I did something that was completely like, oh my God, I really messed this up. If I can go back and apologize to whoever it might be, including myself, like, I'm sorry, self, you did not deserve me to be that hard on you. I've learned from it though. And I'm gonna make a shift because of that. It's not that it's worth it. You don't want to mess things up or whatever, but at least you're moving forward in that way. And that's what we're here for. That's what Earth School is all about, is to take this experience and elevate and grow, right?
Exactly. And that's exactly what we're here for. And putting ourselves out there, right? And being connected to others. And I also hope that anyone listening is inspired to share what they're going through and share their story, even with just one other person in their lives.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
think realizing that, you're not going to be judged, and that it's going to be okay, and that actually that shared connection is also what we're here for,
Mhm.
is huge. Like, any little shift is huge and is worth it, even if it feels like you're falling off a cliff in the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love that. So, what would you say if we asked you, what would you say were your top 3 or your top 1 tools that really helped you? I mean, you mentioned a few of them, but what were the ones that really you felt connected to, or you just felt moved the needle?
I really feel like the Akashic Records. I
Mm.
ended up actually going to get my, training and certification after this because I had a session with my now mentor, and it was so peaceful and so loving, and to know that it was something that I could access at any time,
Mhm.
and I did daily, and could ask questions of, when am I going to get pregnant again? Of course, which the Akashic Records, the thing I love about them is it's only going to give you the guidance that you need in the moment.
Mhm.
So if you don't need to know that information, or it's not the most pertinent thing to keep you on your highest path and highest evolution, it's going to redirect you to what is. So
Mhm.
even on the days that I was swimming in the when will I be pregnant again?
Mhm.
When, I could find clarity and support in their messages, in their energy. I mean, it's an
Mhm.
energetic body. So, yes, the messages that I would hear or write down always felt really good, but just being in the energy
Yeah.
was uplifting because
Mhm.
it's so high vibrational. You're connecting to the ascended masters,
Mhm.
teachers, and any of your loved ones that want to come through. And all of them are vibrating much higher than we are here on the earthly plane. And to just be in that energy is like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah, it's like
And
that
so,
oneness, right? That oneness
yes,
energy. Mhm.
exactly. That we're connected and that there's support out there. Like,
Mhm.
even if I didn't feel comfortable talking to a friend, it's like having a spiritual team to talk to instead, my spiritual therapists, if you
Mhm.
will.
Mhm.
Um, and I didn't have to do anything but say a prayer and come with an open heart and an open mind. And you also have to dispel belief a little bit. Like, it could get really easy to say, like, okay, the answer I got from the Akashic Records, that's the end all be all, that's 100% accurate. It's not, right? The
Mhm.
records are mutable, so they change every day, every second. Like, I'll never forget my firstborn, Sebastian. The records told me he was going to be a Sagittarius. He's a Capricorn. Okay,
Mhm.
they were off by a month, but it was
Mhm.
around that same idea. Whereas they actually also told me that I was pregnant before a blood tested and before a pregnancy tested.
Mhm.
I just knew I was pregnant, and my period hadn't come back. I thought, my hormones were out of whack. The doctor put me on some progesterone to kind of force the period. And after the first round, I was like, no, I know I'm pregnant. And I kept asking the records, and they were like, yes, you are.
Mhm.
And finally, at 9 weeks along, we found out about Sebastian. But without that tool, I don't know if I would have trusted my intuition, or if I would have
Right.
trusted a doctor to
Mhm.
say, oh, no, we need to give you this drug because your period just isn't here yet. You're not pregnant,
Right.
And I know that's
Right.
like a very out there story. And I'm
Mhm.
not saying that doctors are always wrong or that the Akashic Records are
Mhm.
always right, but I use it as an
Mhm.
example of how I was able to really tap into what was true for me.
Well, it's one element of all of the information that you get, right? So you read one book that tells you to do this. Do you go and like subscribe 100% to that? Or do you take that information in and then mix it into everything else that you know, feel, trust, have heard, whatever, and then you spit out your own final idea of what it is. So can you give us an idea of just kind of like exactly what you would hear for support in the Akashic Records? I mean, I know that you mentioned about Capricorn and Sagittarius, and the thing that I think is interesting too about the Akashic Records is it's giving you, like you said, what you need in that moment. So who knows if in that moment you needed to think that he was a Capricorn or a Sagittarius instead. You know what I mean? Maybe that, who knows what that did? Like maybe that did something for you, and maybe it did nothing. But can you give us just sort of an example of one of the experiences that you had when you went to your records and you really felt supported or uplifted, what you actually saw, what came through, how it comes through?
Yeah, so it comes through differently for everyone. I found that it is more of a knowing, or I say word vomit for lack of a better term. So when I'm channeling from the Akashic Records, when I first started, I used to write in a notebook. And then I became well versed in what it felt like. And so I would just speak aloud in like a voice memo what was coming through. And I think the biggest messages that meant the most for me was that I was loved and that I was supported and that there was a reason to keep going, that there was a reason for hope and belief. And
Mhm.
I think that's ultimately what the records gave me the most of was hope,
Mhm.
especially on the days when I didn't think I'd ever be a mother
Mhm.
or that this was ever going to happen to me. And I think, like the Sagittarius or Capricorn example, that to me gave a tangible date
Mm.
of, okay, he will be Earthside by this date. And
You're
I
like, let's just
needed
give her
that.
something, right?
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
tell her something.
Just tell her whatever. But that's what I need. I needed to know, okay, there is a time that he is going to come Earthside. And I actually think one of the more beautiful experiences was getting to connect with this child that still has not come Earthside. I don't know if she will this time or if she's just my helper on the other side, but being able to talk to her and hear from her that she, called Sebastian her brother, that he was there,
Aw.
that he was ready to come through. That to me, that day, I remember vividly sitting in our sunroom with tears just streaming down my face, like knowing that I was connecting to my children
Yeah.
and that they loved me and
Mhm.
that they were ready whenever I was. And that it wasn't going to be much longer before they came Earthside. That to me was like, wow, like
Yeah.
this is really cool. And I still connected with her afterwards. And so like I said, I don't know if she'll come Earthside this time around, but it just feeling that energy was amazing.
Yeah. I love it. I mean, and you build like all of these, I call them the homies. You've got your ascended masters, your spirit guides, your loved ones that have passed, or any spirit pets and stuff like that. But the homies, the trifecta up there, they're just chilling. And so now she's kind of like in your team. And maybe you don't always work with her, or maybe she's doing other things, but you know that she's there. And one thing that I think we both do is when we go into these kind of spaces of connecting to that energy is to ask whoever is best suited for this time to step forward. And not that, and I always say thanks for everyone for being here, but whoever is most aligned for what I need right now, could you please come forward? And can we just really clearly identify who you are and what work we're doing, just so that I can, visualize and see and be connected to your energy in the best way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what people don't realize sometimes with the Akashic Records is it's your energy, it's your voice. Like you're not
Mhm.
going to be hearing, or at least I don't hear a third party voice in my head. Like it's coming from me, coming from my
Mhm.
higher self.
Mhm.
And often it is using words and vocabulary that are common to me.
Mhm.
And, sometimes depending on who I'm connecting to, if they're an older ascended master, like, my handwriting will change or
Mhm.
it won't be as close to my own vernacular, but the records are going to show themselves to you in the way that is most comfortable to you, that is
Yeah.
going to help you believe and understand the most. And, I think there is that amount of belief, right? I think when I teach women to connect to the records, they ask like, am I connected? And I say, believe that you are.
Mhm.
Who's to tell you that you aren't? Believe that you are. And that to me is probably half the battle is once you can believe that you're connected and that the messages that you're receiving are from, above. I think that's when the game changes. Because if not, you could sit there all day and wonder, like, if you're really connected, if you're not connected,
Right.
what is all this that's coming in? But
Right.
believe it, and it is.
Yeah. Can you read to us? I want to just completely change the topic here. Can you read to us something from your book? My point here is I really want to just make sure to bring out all of the different things that you have to offer. And I think that the way that you heard your Akashic Records is just so, I think it will really resound well with audience that are listening to this and coming to this for that purpose. So could you read a piece from your book of one of the poems that you're hoping will connect with people and offer them words?
Yes, absolutely. So all of these poems were channeled either from opening my Akashic Records or sitting down to write after meditation or movement or some type of energy work. You are more than animated flesh and bone, than rotting meat that's all alone. You are here for something more that's stored within your DNA. Let this be an activation as you awaken from the deep slumber you've been under. Breathe life into your cells. Breathe life into your being. You've returned. Now rise.
She read that to me before we even started this episode, and it gave me such goosebumps. And then, of course, again, I love the end. Like, now rise. It's like, oh, it's like a commandment. Like,
I love it.
you
There's a
aren't,
lot of rising in this book, thankfully.
yeah, you aren't given these hard things to just be pummeled by. These are teachers and opportunities and new experiences that can really pull you up. So I love that part about, rise, because I feel like that is ultimately what we're here for, is just to constantly elevate.
Absolutely. I'm trying to find, there was one other one that when I remember writing it, I just was like, oh my gosh, this is it. Yeah. And it was really simple. And each day you let the light fill the cracks a little more, sealing over like gold, not brand new, but like you will be in time.
I love that. It's so good, Victoria. It's so beautiful. I mean, what you have done with this and this offering that you've created from a place that didn't feel very offery. Like, I'm sure, there were a lot of moments that you went through and didn't want to ever have it be good, right? Like, it's just like, I don't ever want it to be better. This is it. This is where it is. I'm done. Sad.
I live here now. I'm here forever. No.
I'm here forever. Yeah, this is just the place. I mean, I know sometimes when you get into those places where you're depressed and you feel hopeless, it's just like, please don't tell me that it's going to get better. I don't even want to hear it. I don't want to try. I don't even have the capacity to be let down if it doesn't. So it's beautiful what you've created.
I think it's a beautiful co-creation with the universe. There's some of these poems I go back and read and I'm like, whoa, like what was I channeling or what was coming through? Like, this is more than just me. And I feel like I can't take full credit for some of the beauty that came through, even though maybe I don't know, the empowered part of me is like, yes, stand up for yourself. It is you. But that little part inside, it's like, no, I was the vessel, which I really believe is true.
I love it. On your bio, you have the womb sacred mentorship. Like, you literally you're offering the womb. And as a space holder, that's what the womb is. It's a space holder, right? Like, it's holding space for a baby to grow and to be nourished so that it can be born. So it's really neat. This is a question I ask to everybody when they come on here, because it is the Living on Purpose podcast. How did your purpose find you? How did you find it? Where did it come from? How did you know? Like, what kind of story can we put around this just to make it more of an experience that others can hear about?
So the miscarriage absolutely led me to my purpose. Without it, I do not think I would be doing what I do today, helping women move through the big emotions of motherhood. It was the catalyst and wake-up call I needed. I always thought I was going to be in corporate America, that I was going to climb that ladder, and I wanted all the fancy titles and things. And after the miscarriage, I really started to question that and wonder if that's all that life had to offer. And I wasn't really sure what was next, but I knew that, okay, there's this little seed at my core that's now been sparked, and I need to let it grow and see where it leads. And then after having my first son, Sebastian, it was, cracked wide open to say, okay, you're here for more. And at the time, I just said I wanted to help people. I didn't know what that looked like. I joined the Kundalini yoga community that we met in, and doing a lot of that work, that inner self-discovery, helped me realize I really like helping women and moms in particular find and rediscover that power that they've always had all along. Because I think, sometimes after motherhood, you have to claw your way back, but then you realize you're not even the same person that you were before, and
Right.
that's okay. And so all of the tools that I have used, I help other women use to find what's right for them. Because I think, as we talked about before, I may love to meditate every day. You may hate that, but you may love working with your inner voice, or you may love doing breath work. And I think what I'm here to do is just hold the space and show you some of the tools that have worked for me, so that you can find out what works for you. I do not think by any means that I'm a guru or I'm here to tell you what to do. Instead, I'm a mirror for all of the beauty and power that you already have inside, and I help you rise.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Was there anything specific? So you were on this career path and then this miscarriage happened. Was there a specific moment or something that really caught you, that really shifted it, where you're like, I don't think this is the whole thing? Like, it seems like somewhere in your journey, you were called deeper from being in corporate America, and then this miscarriage, something in there called you deeper. Can you pinpoint it?
I think it was having Sebastian. I think that really allowed me to say, is this what I want? And do I really? I remember having a panicked moment of, if I'm at the office 9 to 5, when do I get to see my child? When do I get to be with them? When do I get to be a mother? I don't want someone else teaching them all of these things. I want to teach them. And that to me was like, okay, whoa, that's a different perspective than one I've ever had.
Right.
And, I always enjoyed being a teacher in many capacities growing up, but I thought being a teacher meant in a classroom.
Yeah.
And I didn't jive with that. And it wasn't until I saw what could be possible that it really opened up for me, seeing that helping people could be done in so many ways, with so many modalities and so many things. It didn't have to be this inside the box thing.
Right.
I think I had to see that, it's possible through others, for me to realize, okay, it's potentially possible for me. And that, I think, was the big catalyst. And that want to give back and do more for others only grew.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I was like, I don't want to be selling this corporate item for the rest of my life. Like, no one gives two shits about that. I don't give two shits about that. I want to be doing something every day that matters.
Yeah.
That gives back to those around me. My mom is so philanthropic, and I always thought that I couldn't be like that. And then things started to shift, and I realized and maybe it was that, you want to leave a beautiful mark on the world because your kids are going to be around longer than you are. Maybe it was a bit of that, but I also think selfishly, I started to realize what I could offer.
Right.
I don't think I'd ever thought of myself in that way until the postpartum period, when I really started working on myself and healing myself and realizing it was okay to claim that. It was okay to claim that I want to, do more, be more, leave a lasting mark on the world. And I think that was it for sure. I'm grateful that I was able to rediscover and remember these parts of myself. Anyone listening, I hope you feel empowered to do the same, that you are worthy of your wildest dreams. You are worthy of your purpose. And even if the world tells you that you can't do it, or it's silly, or it's selfish, it's not. It's what you're here for. It's what you're here to do and bring to the world. And the world needs you to be doing this thing and following your heart. So I hope that you do. And thank you so much, Catherine. I just always love spending time with you.
That was episode 7 with Victoria Nielsen. We're sharing all about her book, Find Your Way Home, Moving Through Miscarriage, Poems and Practices to Reclaim Your Light After Loss. You can find all the information on how to work with Victoria, all of her offerings, and her upcoming book, all linked here in the show notes. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, review, turn on notifications for the podcast. We're just having so much fun creating these episodes and bringing these conversations to you all. We're very passionate over here at the Living on Purpose podcast about bringing ourselves back to that authentic place, that birthright, our essence and truth. And really appreciate any support that you offer on sharing these episodes to other people that may be interested in hearing specific stories. Thank you again so much, sending you so much love, and can't wait to see you next time.